Welcome to the podcast where we keep it real, talking all things women on the Iconic Women Show with your host, Michelle Watson, author, founder, public speaker, and certified performance coach. Get empowered and inspired while learning about overcoming adversity, spirituality, life, and business strategies that will help you achieve your goals. And now, here's your host, Michelle Watson.
Great. Welcome back once again to another episode of the Iconic Woman podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Michelle Watson, and today, again, I have another phenomenal woman that is here, an iconic woman that has been doing great things. I've been watching her for a long time now, and I truly admire who she represents as a woman out there doing great things. And I'm not gonna take long to introduce her to you. But as you know, we are a podcast where we keep it real, sharing all things women. And with us, we have the amazing Linda Attram. I'm so pleased to have you here. She's an entrepreneur, a mother, a wife, a speaker, a businesswoman. She wears many hats. You wear many hats, and I'm just really glad to have you here because, as I mentioned, I've watched you. So to begin with, your husband is the first person that I met, like just starting my personal development journey.
Yes.
I think it was millionaire mindset.
Millionaire Mind Intensive.
Millionaire Mind Intensive. That was my first time stepping out into personal development world. Okay. And I just felt this urge of, oh my God, I love what they're doing. They're training people. They're showing people different things. And that started me on my journey. So you're a part of my journey.
Oh, amazing.
So just so you know. But Linda, you know what? Today is really about all things women, like looking at women and just really, because one of the things that I realized, a lot of the younger generation have come to me. They're like, Michelle, like, how do you guys do it? Like, I see you women out there, you're married, you have children, you're showing up as a wife, you're showing up as a business owner and an entrepreneur, and you're speaking and you're doing all these great things. How do you keep this balance? How do you make it work? So I guess my first question to you is like, how long have you been married? How long have you been on this journey?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. And it's an honour to be on your show. And thank you for having me as your guest. So, yeah, what a big question to start off with. So I have been married for 24 years. Had to think about that then, make sure I got it right. Wow. So we got married in 1999. So we've been on this journey together since then. Yeah.
Wow, 24 years. That's
24 years.
That's just 1 year older than my eldest child. Like, seriously. So how do you make everything work? Because you do quite a lot as an entrepreneur. In fact, feel free to share with us some of what you do, because I know I've mentioned the accolades, but it still doesn't paint the picture of all that you do, because I only found out recently that you dabble in properties as well. You're a master. Like, please just share with us what are some of the things that you do? What does your days look like?
Thank you. So, you asked me initially in terms of, how do I manage it all? Yeah. And to be quite honest, I don't know. There is no magic science. And I think it's like, I don't know if it's a woman thing or a mum thing, where sometimes you just get so much that you have to get on with, that this kind of inner force just comes out and you just get on with it. You just find a way. And I'm very, very organised. So I'm not very technical, like using laptops and things like that. I like to write things down. I like
you're a paper
person, and I love the enjoyment of crossing things out as soon as I've done them. So I have list upon list upon list, in order to organise my day. But it's interesting what you say about, you came into our lives first through MMI. And going back to the beginning, when Max started doing MMI, he started off as a participant, and my head was not around personal development at that time. I was busy being a new wife and being a new mum. So I was just focusing on that, and also having our property business on the side. So when he started going to all of these events, I really didn't understand it, and it was quite a challenge for me to get my head around. And I thought, he's finding himself, and I just let him get on with it, because it wasn't my world at all. So I had to manage being a new mum, being being a wife, not having my husband around for very long because he was traveling all over the world. So for me, that was quite a challenge. But the way that I overcame that was I always go back to my mum in terms of how did she manage?
Wow,
you know, and my mum is from the Caribbean island of Grenada, and so she came over in the Windrush generation. My dad came over first, and then my mum. So being the eldest of 16, she left her whole family behind, made that journey to the UK, first time ever travelling. And I thought, well, if my mum can do that with very little education, in fact, no education whatsoever, no resources, I've got all of these resources, I've got lots of support, I've got education, I've got no excuses. So everything that I do always reverts back to my mum. And anytime I have a challenge or a struggle, I think, well, what would mum do? I mean, she's passed away now, but she was my biggest inspiration.
That's
so
beautiful.
Thank you. So it's about, you know, doing whatever you can and making the next generation better. So my mum made that journey to make the next generation better in terms of her children. So it's my turn now, this is the way I see it, to pass the baton on to my kids. So my kids see everything that I'm doing, that my husband's doing. They can then make it better for the next generation. So
That is lovely.
in terms of the things that I get involved in, I've been in property for 24 years. That's how I started.
That magic number now, it's like 24.
It is a magic number.
Magic number, 24.
And it was funny actually how we all started in property, because Matt had his own house, I had my own flat, we wanted to live together. He started talking to me about equity and I'm like, what on earth is that? I don't know what that is. At the time we weren't married, and I thought, I'm not going to put any money in with him or this kind of thing. You know what it's like when you have those kind of trust issues. And so eventually he persuaded me, and we released equity from our individual properties, bought a house together, and then we rented out our individual properties.
Wow.
And then I realised there was this beautiful thing called cash flow. And I'm like, okay. Let's carry on.
Word number 2, equity, then cash flow. Okay, great.
Yeah, so it was all learning. Learning for me. And so we then decided to continue to repeat the process, get some education, find out some more strategies, and then that's how it all started. So I originally started in property as a side hustle. So my actual career was in HR.
Okay.
So I'm 18 years experience in equality and diversity, working in places like Great Ormond Street Hospital and Brunel University. So I was doing it as a side hustle, didn't tell anyone at work what I was doing, and I'm so glad that I didn't.
Good.
Worked there in Brunel for 10 years. And as soon as I decided to leave, I had the whole negativity. What are you doing? Property's so risky. You're going to lose all your money and all this kind of thing. And now the same people that are like ringing me up or following me on social media, how do you do it? This, that and the other. So, for me, it's really important about the people that I have around me.
Love that.
And, Mac and I, we don't have a lot of people around us. It might seem like that on the outset, but we have a very, very tight circle because we want to just make sure that we're focused on what we want to do, and without any of the distractions.
100%. I love that. I absolutely love that. You said a lot in there, and I love the fact that it just flowed, because I'm hearing you and I'm laughing to myself because that's how my journey in property started.
Right. Okay.
So we had a house, we decided, okay, great, same thing, learn about equity, because when we bought, the way that we bought this first house was even crazy because at the time I had, coming out of the abusive relationship, I lost so much, right? And then obviously now I got into, my relationship with my now husband, and I just woke up this morning with this brilliant idea of we need to go and start an ISA.
Okay.
To save towards a deposit for the house. This time not realizing that with right to buy, you didn't even need a deposit. I didn't know. So I've gone to the bank. This time I was working on the underground. So my salary was decent compared to what it was before. And I'm saying all of these stuff to the guy, and he's like, okay, how's your credit? And I'm like, my credit is bad. Because at this time I had damaged my credit because I came back to the UK when I was 19. Okay. And I had no idea anything about credit. I was working in car phone warehouse. So as soon as a new phone came out, I'll be taking out another contract, getting phone, doing silly things, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea how it would impact me later on.
Sure.
So my credit was absolutely terrible. And I go there and I'm like, I know, one, we don't have any deposit. Two, I don't have good credit. My husband was still recent in the country, so he didn't have like a whole credit history. So we just need an ISA to save for deposit.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, whilst you're here, I'll do some checks, etc. We left with a mortgage in principle. We left with a mortgage in principle. I'm like, how does that happen? Sort of thing. So after we were there for a few years, there was more than enough equity in there to then buy somewhere else.
Okay.
And that's how our property journey started as well. So here, when you say that, I'm just listening, I'm laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's kind of how ours started as well.
Yeah.
But you said a lot in there in the sense of, one, be careful who you listen to on this journey. And especially for us as women, it's so easy to get entangled in the Chinese whispers, you know? And I think that is very important on any woman's journey, because as you rightly said, you're glad you didn't open your mouth and say it.
Yes.
And it just brings me back to even Joseph in the Bible when he told his siblings his dream and the effects or the implications of that. And a lot of people have gone down that route. They had the idea of going into property, but then they're like, oh, you're going to lose it. You know, bailiffs is going to take it away. You're safer remaining in a council property.
Yeah.
So even just talking to young people now, I've realized that a lot more of them are realizing it's not actually like that. If you get the education, and there's a lot of that out there now, if you get the education and you kind of not take risk, but you have to kind of be a risk taker in business, because anything could go wrong. And I'm glad that you took the risk, because now, today, right, those very same people, as you said, are now contacting you. My question to you again would be, based on what you were speaking about, because I always talk about circle of influence, and even my children, I always speak to them about circle of influence. I'm kind of like you. It seems for me like I have a lot of people around me, but when I get in the closure of my home, nobody knocks my door, right?
Yeah.
And I always speak about the importance of circle of influence, especially as a woman, knowing the layers of the people that you have around you, and knowing the people that you cannot necessarily say everything to, you cannot necessarily bring a business idea to, because they can crush that dream. How important would you say it is for women to pay attention to their circle of influence?
It's highly, highly important for women to pay attention to that, because, you know, it doesn't matter what part of your journey you're on, you're always going to have those challenges, and you have to be very careful about who you have around you. And the tighter your circle is, the better. And I think some people think, you know, the more friends they have, the more popularity they have, the better they can, you know, go to anyone for advice. But not everybody's in your circle. And even now, with all of the 24 years of experience in property, you know, we're now going into property development, which is a completely different ball game. And as a woman, I have to go into a male energy on occasion, because when you're dealing with these,
energy has to come out.
with those contractors, and they think that they can, you know, pull the wool over your eyes and things like that. And so, you know, we've had experiences where we've had to sack our own solicitors, whereas you feel, when you're talking about, you know, circles of influence, there are people that you think that are on your team that will help and support you, but also being a woman, being black, all has those kind of negative connotations. So you're always on your guard to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And whereas, you know, going into property is a risk, and you have to do your risk assessments, you also have to do a risk assessment on your own circle as well, and constantly review it. Not just think, okay, it's okay now, so it'll be fine forever. No, even after 24 years of I'm constantly, you know, reviewing that, because the more wealth that you create as you know yourself, the more people make assumptions about your lifestyle and try and take liberties.
Become leeches.
Exactly. So
straight. They become leeches. I definitely see it. I've seen it so many times, and these are the things where I even had one point, my daughter was like, Mom, I don't feel, she's hell-bent on she wants to run her own business. She doesn't want to work for anybody past the age of 30.
Good
So
for her.
she's very straight with that. But then sometimes she looks at me like, Mom, I don't know how you do it. Like, how are you able to still just allow somebody to do that, and you allow them to apologize? Because I'm very forgiving, but at the same time, I'm wise with my forgiveness. The fact that I've forgiven you doesn't mean that you're back here.
Yes, exactly.
Right? But she's like, Mom, I don't know if I could deal with this. And I'm like, unfortunately, you're gonna have to deal with it, because she's very loyal. And so we tend to always have this thinking that because I am loyal, other people are the same way and they're gonna treat you the same way. And so in some ways, I'm kind of glad that she has seen my experiences and things that I've experienced with other people, because then that's her lesson.
Of course.
For her to then see that, okay, great, not because you're kind to somebody that means you're going to give kindness back. And I love the fact that you were saying about the fact that you actually have to keep a check. You know, somebody could have been around you for 10 years and they change at the 10th year.
Yes, exactly.
Right? They change at the 10th year. And so that is mega important. But I love that you're going into development. Good. I'm going to have you back on at some point to share about this development journey, because I know that a lot of people want to hear that. But apart from the development, you work with women as well.
Yes.
Is it a Global Woman
Club?
Yes.
Yes.
How is that going? Like,
yeah, so I've been part of the Global Woman Club for about 5 years now. Started off as a member purely because of my property journey.
Wow.
I was going to a lot of networking events that were mainly in the evening, mainly male orientated. The kids were very young at the time, so it wasn't really convenient for me to be leaving the children. So I heard about the Global Woman Club, and it was breakfast networking. It was women. So I thought, okay, let me just try it out and see how I go. And I just loved the environment. So I became a member, and then later on I decided to become a director. And that was as a result of my father passing away.
okay.
When my mum passed away many years ago, I didn't handle it very well. It took me 3 years to get over it. So I thought, when my dad passed away, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to take control, although you can't really control grief, but I know what to expect, so I can kind of deal with it a bit differently. So I thought, you know, they say life is short, but life is for living. So I thought, let me just take the opportunity, apply to be a director, create a community of my own, inspire women with my own journey, because I've got lots of experience in terms of that other people can bounce off of, they can learn from. And so, that's how it all started. So I've been a director now for 3 years. And I do this on an online basis, but also I attend the live meetings as well. But it's great to give back as well. It's not something that I'm in for the money. It's about utilising my experience, things that I didn't get when I was starting off my journey. I think about, what would I have liked? What sort of a community would I have liked? And I create that with the women that I work with.
I love that, because that was the whole basis of me starting the Iconic Woman.
Right. Okay.
Because it was all about making a difference to women. I always spoke about, for me, when I went through the circumstances that I went through, if I didn't have a network, I don't think I would have survived. And so I'm always thinking about, what about the individuals that don't? What about the women that don't have that person to speak that word of encouragement, or to make them realize, like, listen, this is not just a glory show. There's a story behind it. And I think we mentioned it in a convo briefly.
Yes, yeah.
Because many people see that. They see all of the glitter and the glamour. And that's why I always say to people, I don't paint a picture of what's not there. There's times when it's tough, right? And you're having to push with all of your might. But people tend to only see what happens after. They don't know the story behind it. And some of that is because of how people put it out there as well. Because they only put out what looks beautiful. They don't put out the rough bits. They don't see you on a construction site. They don't see you juggling between home, work, dinner, children, taking them to their extracurricular activities. They don't see that. But then you will get people that will be envious of the good bits that they see, or they want to have what it is that you have, but they're not willing to do the work that you've done in order to get there. And I think it's just really, really important that we have these platforms and we have these avenues for the younger generation, as you rightly said, the passing down of the baton. Because I always get worried about my younger children. My youngest is 12, and I always think about what is our future looking like, especially with what you're seeing happening in today's society. What is her future looking like? And I don't know if you're like me. I have very, very open conversations with my children, all of my children. There's nothing too deep that they will ask me and I don't answer. So I don't know how that is for you. Do you do the same, or?
Yeah, I have open conversations with my children. I've got 2 girls and a boy. So my eldest is 23 and my youngest is 16. So they see the good, the bad and the ugly with me. And, there are times, like you say, people see the glory, but they don't necessarily see the story. And, there are times when, like, if we go back to your question about how do I manage, there are times when I don't get out of bed. I literally work from my bed. Yeah. And I might shower about 4:00 in the afternoon. I might not even have to shower, and I'm just working and I'm on it. Yeah. I don't have like set hours, like 9 till 5 and then I'm off. I have to do whatever I have to do, depending on what what's going on in that particular day. But because my kids observed that, I have those conversations with them, because I, like most mums, go through that whole mum guilt. It's not just because they're when they were 2 years old, you have that mum guilt because you didn't read the bedtime story. It's also about not being able to prepare the dinner for them on time when they walk through the door, from school or college or work or whatever. So I have to have those conversations with them to be a stand-up mum and say, okay, well, this has happened today and this is why I'm behind or I haven't done whatever. I love that. Can you help me? I ask them, I reach out to them for help, because they are part of that close circle for me. Where there's been days where we've been going through this development over the last couple of years, where 18 months, where it's been very challenging, and they'll come home and they'll see me in a not very good condition, like emotionally, like being very, very upset. And I have to talk through it with them. And when I do, they help me, they inspire me to keep going on. Because why. Yeah, exactly. And one of the great things for me now in terms of being involved in development is, regardless of the outcome, and I know what the outcome's going to be, that we're going to finish it and it's all going to be beautiful, but for generations to come, my grandkids will drive past that road and they'll see that block and they'll say, that was Grandma Linda or Granddad Mac's property. I love that. And they'll be able to tell the story of the good, the bad and the ugly, and how we got there. So it's important for your circle to know the good, the bad and the ugly. And I know, like, a lot of people say on social media they only see the glamour, but also you have to protect yourself, because you don't want to put everything out there. Exactly. Because people will criticize you whether you're doing good, bad or not. So you just give them what they need. What they need. So.
It's 100%. And for me, it's just always about being authentic, because I don't know anything else. I think it's hard work being anything else. So I'm very open, but as you rightly said, you give only what they need to get. But I love that fact. I was just seeing the image of your children actually driving past, or your grandchildren driving past that building. It's quite emotional. Yeah, it does. Like, literally, I'm imagining it, and that is beautiful. And I think a lot of people have to see that and have to recognize these things and not give up, because as you rightly said, there's times when I felt like I want to give up, 100%. Because we're human beings, right?
Yes, exactly.
And there's times when it's gotten tough. And then I'm like, okay, so if I give up, what do I expect my children to do when their time comes? Yeah. And so you develop this, you have this energy, as you rightly said, I think you said it before, that sometimes you don't even know how you've done it. But you've just done it because you know that you have no other choice but to do it. I remember at one point my husband was like, because we had one of the properties that we were doing up, we actually had... a builder that basically started the contract. Everything was going fine. Building control was coming in, checking. All of a sudden, he disappeared.
Oh, no.
And he disappeared with a good chunk of money, because it was almost like payday. More materials were supposed to come in and all of this. And not only that, we ended up having water coming up from that. So we had to literally take up the whole floor. No way. Had to take up the whole floor. There was a pipe in the wall that it seems like he squeezed it in. So when the water started to gush down, it popped out. The whole wall
Nightmare.
had to come back. It was a nightmare. And I remember my husband was like, I'm done. I'm giving up. And I said to him, if you give up now, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Because even if we go to sleep, when we wake up tomorrow, this problem is still here waiting, right? It's still here waiting. And we've had to really pull from some deep places because during this time I was ill. So I became ill and there was just so much going on to the point where I felt like I don't even think I'll ever get back to mentoring or doing anything like that. I think I had just gotten to that point where I was like, I'm done, you know, and I think because there was still some grief in that because I lost my nan, COVID 2020. So I got diagnosed with my illness, started on immunosuppressant injections. So I had to shield,
Right.
couldn't go out, couldn't see family. Then my nan passed and she was basically my mom. She raised me. And that was it was one of the hardest times in my life.
It's a lot.
So dealing with that, then losing family members as it was just going on. And so when you get to this point where you feel like, okay, I'm going to breathe. My head is out of the water.
Yeah.
And something just comes and pushes you right back down. And we have no choice. And I think that's what a lot of women have to realize, because even the younger generation now, speaking to my husband the other day, we were talking about the fact that their level of resilience is not as we experience it, because they've not had to go through anything. Everything has just been easy.
Yes, exactly.
As they say, the soft life, it's just been easy.
Yeah.
And so the level of resilience, and I normally get concerned for them because a breeze blow and they're out. And it's just facts. A breeze blows and they're out. And we can't undermine what they're going through because it's different times, but it makes you wonder, like, how? I woke up the other morning, Linda, and I was saying I literally woke up. It's about 4:00 in the morning, and I do my devotions in the morning. But before I did my devotion, I'm lying there and I'm like, God, how am I sane? How am I not mentally off the chart? Like, how am I sane? Because I was just reflecting on journeys, like going way back.
Right.
I'm like, how am I sane? And I was just thinking about all the different coping mechanisms that ended up falling into place without me sometimes even realizing it. So what has been yours? Like, what are some of the things that you believe has allowed you to cope? I know you said obviously your children and most likely your husband as well, but what has there been other things that you've had to really bring into play to keep you going?
Yeah, great question, Michelle. Thank you. So for me, it's really been about my health. So for the last maybe 2-3 years, actually from during COVID, I went on a Tony Robbins online program, Life Mastery. And my intention was just to go on the program and, you know, educate myself. But I ended up completely changing my lifestyle as a result of it. And I became vegan. So becoming vegan has given me a lot more energy.
Wow.
And my husband already was a vegan. My eldest daughter, she's a raw vegan. So it was just kind of easier for me to slip into that.
Yeah, definitely. It must be easier. Not a lot of cooking of different meals and stuff like that.
No, well, we still do, because my son eats junk and my middle daughter just eats fish. So it's quite a challenge. But anyway, so yeah, my food intake gives me a lot more energy to keep me going, because I think if I was eating differently, I wouldn't be able to work as many hours as I do now. Exercise as well has been a great factor in my life as well, because for me energy is everything. But also affirmations, and you know, when I was younger, I didn't have any self-belief whatsoever. I had no confidence. And as I got older and you know, got into this self-development world, I realized how what you say to yourself has a big impact. And that's the biggest thing, I think, biggest lesson that, you know, anyone watching this can take away from this is, you know, that self-talk and you know, trying to block out those naysayers and being strong to your vision and to your mission as well. And one of the things that I love doing, it sounds really crazy, but like yourself, you know, sometimes you go through these days and you think, how on earth have I got through this day? And I go to bed at night and I put the duvet over my head and I love it. That's my haven. Just having the duvet over my head and just having a conversation with myself and reflecting on what I did for the day. And when I go through that list, like sometimes I fall asleep going through the list. But then it's also good for me to sort of celebrate all those little things that I've done. And having that conversation with myself helps me to prepare for the next day, because I celebrate the fact that I've got through the day regardless of how tough it has been. But then also the next morning, then I go through another set of affirmations to start me off for the day. So that is not something that I've always done throughout my whole life. It's been more since I've been getting more and more challenges in the business, because as you grow you get more challenges, so you have to dig deeper.
As they say, more money, more problems.
That's
what they say.
So you have to dig deeper in terms of those coping mechanisms. So
no, that is good, because it's funny you said that, because my daughter, my youngest daughter, she had done her little book of affirmations, and that the whole element of that was created based on the fact that her sister had gone through bullying at school,
right,
and it really affected her, and it knocked her confidence. And she, because of that experience, she almost made it like a point of duty for her to say, I need to make sure that my sister is strong, so that if she ever experiences that, she's prepared, or she has that will about her that it won't crush her the way it did me. And so we started her on this journey of affirmations. And so she used to get up in the morning and say her affirmations. And the power that I'm seeing it right now is that even when she's had periods of time where she's not done it, you'll say something to her, and the confidence that comes out, or the level, I'm like, some people see, because she looks very quiet, very quiet. She's a child that she'll sit here the whole day and you can know she's not here. Right. You wouldn't know she's here, sort of child. But when you start to have a conversation with her, you're realizing, oh my God. And people are like to me, like, how did she come about? And I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, what did I do differently this time around? And so when we, just last week, we were watching back a video she did when she was 6 years old. Okay. And I'm bold, I'm beautiful, I love my life, I love who I am. And I'm like, this is where it all started from. And a lot of young people are missing that, because the world is telling them so much of who they're not. And if you don't know who you are, you'll fall for anything.
Yes.
And so I love the fact that you brought that up, because some people may think, it only starts from when you're a child. But no, you can start anything, any journey, anywhere, at any region in your life. Because you can choose to bin what you've already been told and give birth to something completely new. Yeah. And so I love the fact that you mentioned that, because I realized that my eldest daughter, when we speak about it, she's like, Mom, I was already telling myself certain things. So it's almost like when they started to bully me, it was a confirmation.
Right.
And I held it, because she used to shave up she used to have a beautiful, she still does now, thank God, but her eyebrows, just beautiful eyebrows, and she used to shave them. Wow. Because we're telling her face is full of hair, and she never used to take pictures. She went through a period when she didn't used to take pictures, and then when she got to 16, we saw the effects of it, because she started to have seizures. She went through so much anxiety, she would just black out. She's been on the road. God has kept that girl. She's blacked out in the middle of the road.
Bless her.
And it's made her stronger now, but it took going through a whole journey.
Of course.
And sometimes I say to myself, is that why God started me on the personal development journey? Because I was able to help her with some tools. But you still get that guilt. When you're talking about the mum guilt, because my guilt was, I'm there for so many people. I'm helping so many people. Yes. But my daughter is crumbling, and so that was an experience. So I don't know how. I know that you said that obviously your children are your why, right? In a lot of avenues. But when you see them, do you ever have that worry about what tomorrow is? But I know that you're doing a lot with them. I see sometimes on Facebook, they're doing is it karate or what is it that they do? Taekwondo. I tried to get my little one to do it. She was not having it. She wants to play football. Right. The life of me, she wants to play football.
Why not?
So that's what she's doing at the minute. But when you look at them, do you feel like that confidence, like I've done my bit enough that they will be okay? And I know it's a deep question, but I have to ask what I ask myself sometimes.
No, it's a great question. And I do often ask myself that question because, you know, tomorrow's never promised.
Yeah.
But I feel that what I've done so far will give them a start.
Yeah, I love that.
It will give them a start. It's not complete. It will never be complete. Your role as a mum, you'd always have, you know that role of support for them. But I believe I've given them a start, and you know, I do worry. Like any mum would, you know, I don't want to ever leave them early, if I ever had a choice in it, which we don't.
By God's grace.
But yes, exactly. So, but I believe that they've got the tools to know what's right from wrong, to know that things don't come easy, to know that they are more privileged than me and Mac ever were, and that they're not. You know, that privilege isn't, they need to, like for us, they need to earn like rewards. So we don't give them pocket money or anything like that. They need to, if they want something, they have to give us something in return.
I want to hear more about that, because I think people need to hear these things, because I've started my daughter on a journey recently of, so I was listening to something, I can't remember what it was, and it was just talking about the fact that when you're, you know, getting them to just do just chores to earn money, it's almost like you're telling them the only way that you will get money is if you work. But what about knowledge side of things? And the guy was saying that he gave his son Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he needed to read it and come back and explain to him, tell him the lessons that he's learned from it. Excellent. And he gave him a tenner.
Okay.
Yeah. So because it's almost like, okay, I'm paying you to do work in the house, but what about the knowledge? Because there's work hard and there's work smart.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to hear more about your process, because I love what you mentioned. So I want to hear more about how you do what you do with that.
Yeah, so if we talk about the financial side of things, so all of our kids have been on MMI, and we regularly play cash flow together as a family. So they know, and when I say that they've got a start, they know that they don't have to work for anyone. They can if they choose to, but they know that there's an option. Whereas when me and Mac were their age, we didn't know.
We
just
option.
thought you go
to school, work hard, get a good job.
Yeah, and then you retire. So they know that there's that option. And so, for example, if they want something, like my middle daughter, she goes to Nottingham Uni. She's going to go on a holiday with her friends and all that kind of stuff in the summer. And she was a little bit short for her fare. Yeah. So she asked us for some money to top it up, and we said, yeah, fine, but how are you going to pay us back? It's not like mum and dad were just going to give you the money, so you have to earn it. So she's got a part-time job, but also we have to have a plan, okay, and the dates that you're going to pay us back, so they don't just think that we're just going to give them money that, you know. And whereas like they go, like I went to a school in West London where the head teacher got murdered. That's how bad my school was. Our kids go to private schools, so they have a completely different
experience.
Yeah, but I explained to them the sort of school that I went to, and that black people weren't expected to go to university. They were expected to leave, get a low-paid job, or go into a life of crime. So they know all of that. I don't ever want them to think that this bubble that they're not in a bubble, but I don't ever want them to create a bubble thinking that this is life and
this is
mum
how
and dad will just
be.
Exactly. So you know they'll do their chores around the house and things, not for money, because they have to. They have when we were brought up, we had to get involved in chores, and it's funny because you know when our kids go on like trips with school and things like that, and they come back and they tell us these stories, and they find it hilarious that some of their friends can't even make up their own beds. You know, and
I've had that.
You know, and but it's also the case of, you know, having your own standards and your values as a parent. So they might not like it, but if you're living in my house, I want the bed made up. I want the curtains open. I want the fresh air through the, you know, you opening the windows and things like that. So when I say they've got to start, they have that start,
the foundation.
In that. The foundation. What they choose to do with it after that is up to them. I can't control that as much as I'd love to, and you know, and be there all of the time, but they can't. And I always go back to like my parents as well. What did they do? How did they prepare me? And their preparation was very different, but I also realised that my mum was quite flexible with me. You know, although she was quite strict, she was quite open with me, and she allowed me a lot of flexibility. So I try and instill that with.
I didn't get that. Mine was the opposite. My nan was strict. Like, it's weird because when I look back at it, at the beginning, I used to think that she hated me. It's the weirdest thing. I literally thought my nan hated me.
Yeah.
And she became like an anchor in my life. You know what I'm saying? She became that anchor. And I realized, and it wasn't until I came back to the UK and I was realizing there were people my age that didn't know how to cook, didn't know how to clean, didn't know how to do all of these things that I found like, why am I? So there's things there that, yes, I had to, I picked and I kept. But there's obviously some things I had to be like, okay, no. So I couldn't have a conversation with her. So if something happened, and it wasn't that she necessarily said you can't have a conversation, but because of how she was, her character, I would have been scared to approach her. Like when my cycle started, my nan didn't know till about a year after.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, how comes your cycle started? You never come and tell me. And I'm like, because I thought it was something scary to come and approach you with. And so I always said to myself, I don't ever want my children to have that, because I want them to be able to come and speak to me at every given moment. And sometimes it's so hard because you need to create this balance of, I'm mum. So, you know, you need to have that level of respect. We need to know, obviously, the boundaries. But at the same time, they need to also be able to trust you enough and know that, okay, there's nothing that I cannot come and speak to my parents about. Yeah. Because I think there's a breach there if that isn't there, because if they can't speak to you, they will go and find somebody else to speak to that may not give them the advice that they should be getting. Exactly. So I've always had that, but my nan wasn't flexible. Like Linda, she was not flexible at all. I used to wake up in the mornings and I had to walk 3 miles to get a bus to go to school at 4 o'clock in the morning.
You're joking.
No joke. That's what 4 o'clock in the morning. When people say to me, how do you have this work ethic? I don't know what's wrong with my words today. And I keep saying to them, I know nothing else. I used to walk 4 o'clock, get the bus, come back home. I'd be in my nan's shop and bar. She ran a shop and a bar. I used to run the shop and bar from the age of 10. So before I was even legal to pour rum in a cup, I was pouring rum in a cup, right? And then from there, I would be working. I'd be doing my homework whilst running the shop. Right. Go to bed to wake up again to hit the road the following morning. Amazing. And on the weekends, I was the one running the shop. So I would clean the house, and it wasn't a small house. Clean the house. And if the shop is not open by a certain time, she's not looking at the fact that I was cleaning the house. You're supposed to be, the shop's supposed to be open at 9 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? So I've raised chickens, pigs. I've done it. I've done the hustle. Yeah. And then I went from there, you know, school, all of this jazz, and started working. And I was basically doing 2 jobs, because I'd work in banking, and then I would come back and I would still be working in the shop and the bar. Right. So I grew up at a point where I was like, I hate my nan. Because I would be in the shop watching kids going to fun days, fun fairs, and I'm in the shop. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I learned so much from her, and I learned so much from doing it. And it made me stronger for the things that I've gone through recently in my life. I'm like, I think if I didn't have that resilience, I wouldn't have coped. No. So foundation has a lot.
It does.
Has a lot to do with it.
And, you know, I love what you're doing, Michelle, in terms of this conversation and, you know, inspiring the younger generation. But it also has a big place for people of our age group and older as well, in terms of, you know, changing that paradigm. So, you know, for me and Mac, it was really important because we both came from divorced parents, and it was very important for us to do whatever it took to make sure that our marriage was successful. Beautiful. Because when I went, and I've said this before, this is no secret. when I got married to Mac, obviously I loved him, but I never went into the marriage thinking that this was a forever, ever, ever, because everything around me, everyone that was
said the opposite.
Well, yeah, it was. Everyone was there for a few years and then they get divorced. So it wasn't like in my head I was thinking this is a forever, but clearly now it's different. But it's a case of, you know, changing that cycle and making sure that next generation see a different cycle. It doesn't have to be as it was before. You as a parent, as a mum or whatever, have that power to change that cycle, but you just need to have that determination, that grit, go down deep to do whatever it takes to change your circumstances.
100%.
So
No, definitely, I love that. There's something that I always say when I'm speaking. I say you can't go back and rip out the pages of yesterday, you know, the things that went wrong, how things started, but what you do have is the ability to decide what is going to be written in your next chapter. And the next chapter also involves your children, your grandchildren. What were they able to get from you, you know, as a parent, that foundation. I can look back and see what I was able to get from my nan. I heard from her what she was able to get from her, well, she didn't get to grow up with her mom. Her mom actually died when she gave birth to her. So she grew up with her aunt. And so just speaking to her and just hearing some of what she went through, and what she experienced. And it's surprising that even though I grew up with her, there's a lot that I didn't know until the year before she passed. And I'm in my head, I'm like, it's almost like we knew that she was going to pass, because I remember starting and having this conversation with her about things that she experienced. And I heard stuff that I had never heard before. And so I have that joy of knowing that, yes, she's gone, but she's left so much behind. And I guess it boils down again to the legacy, isn't it? That legacy of what you want to leave behind. It's like when you say, you know, your children are going to drive past, your grandchildren are going to drive past, because as we know, they're not going to be tearing down buildings in the UK. Like, it's going to be there. It's going to be there, right? They need more buildings, so it's not going to be torn down. And to know that, have you ever really stopped and asked yourself or realized what you're actually creating? Like, in the sense of this building will be there. We're living, right? So for instance, we see some Victorian buildings now, and they were there from like the 1950s, and the stories that are behind them.
Yeah.
And realizing that that's what you're creating.
I know. It gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. It really does. And it's, you know, it's just beautiful that I've been blessed to have children, because not everyone is. And I can, you know, we can pass that down to them.
Wow,
and you know, lovely. We take them onto the site as well. They've seen the journey. You know, we don't want them just to see when it's all done and nice and clean. They've seen, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly on the site, and we talk to them about the challenges. And you know, the stories I could go into, Michelle, about people just trying to take liberties with us because of whatever situation, is another podcast. But but it's, you know, although we're building this legacy, it doesn't necessarily mean that they want it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we're going to enjoy it whilst we're here, and they can benefit from it. But once we're gone, it's up to them what they choose to do with it. We're not going to force them to say, yes, you have to be in property. They're three kids with three different aspects, different goals, and they will choose whatever they want to do. It's our job just to set those foundation. And
I love that, because I remember I was having this conversation with my husband once, and he was just talking about, I think of somebody that he knows was just saying that the uncle is of age. The uncle is about, he's old, and they were putting him in a care home, and he was just talking about what the kids were doing to the house, and he was just saying it's very painful to know that man may have worked all his life to have that, and then that's what it is. And sometimes it makes you as a parent think, do you really want to be doing all of this for the kids? Because we know we're not going to be here forever. And I said to him, guess what? Our job's just to be parents.
Yes, exactly. We can't, predict the future and control it after we're not here.
Our job is just to do what we need to do to make their journey better. And we can only plant the seeds, allow the tree to grow, and they can decide whether they're going to water it
Yes.
or they're not.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that we can do.
No.
And so it is a journey. It is a real serious journey. And I just love that there's so many platforms now that women can learn from. And I love the fact that you mentioned that it is for women our age as well, because some women tend to think that by the time they've reached a certain age, this is who I am.
Yeah.
I can't change. There's no change in me.
Yeah, I used to.
Is
think
it?
like
I would have
that,
never thought that.
Yeah, no, honestly, when I wasn't into self-development,
Yeah.
and Mac was off on his journey finding himself, I thought that was my role. I was a mum, and that's it.
Yeah.
And because I never was brought up in that environment where, education continues as an adult. I thought I had my time. I didn't do a great job at it when I went to school, and left with very little education. But then when I realised that actually I can educate myself, and at the same time I'm inspiring my kids to know that as well, and especially for my girls, like if they choose to get married at a later stage, they know that they don't have that mindset that I had. They can be businesswomen, they can be career women, and also run a business and being a mum at the same time. Nice. And for my son, for him to know that if he chooses to get married in the future, that his wife has choices as well. It's not just about once your kids come on and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Now, as we're rounding up, I wanted to ask you though, do you think that it's been easier for you that you and Mac are on similar journeys in the sense of personal development, the importance of knowledge? Do you think it's a lot easier navigating as opposed to one going left? Because as you rightly said, we're all going to have our different things, etc. But did you find that it's made the journey a lot easier when you finally got the understanding of what this man is on? Like, he's not out there joining a cult or anything.
Yeah, absolutely, because we then have common goals. Although we are on the same journey together, we are very, very different. And when we look at our wealth profiles, he's a star, so he's out there, and I'm a lord. I like counting the pennies, and I'm very detailed and stuff like that. So we're completely opposite. And before we realised what our wealth profile was, in business, we didn't get on very well together. We would constantly be arguing and bickering because we were getting involved in areas that weren't our areas of expertise. So we had to go through another educational learning process to understand what our profiles were, and then decide on what parts of the business we would focus on and what parts we would leave. to the other person, which was a great asset to our relationship. And I think if you're in a relationship where maybe one person's on the journey and the other one isn't, then that will be very challenging because you're having to do everything by yourself. If you're having to have those days like I have where they might be duvet days, not duvet days because they're fun, because I'm working and I literally can't get out of the bed because I've got so much to do.
I've had them.
Then if you've got a partner that understands that, then it makes it easier. Because if I was doing that and Mac wasn't on that same journey, he'd be thinking I'm a lazy wife and she's still doing the bed, the house is a mess, and all that kind of stuff. So it would be more challenging if you didn't have a partner that had the same sort of vision and goals to share with you. And everything that we do, we make sure that the family is at the core of it. So although he has a mega ridiculous schedule at times, we'll always put like the kids' holidays in first, all the school holidays, and then he'll put in his other things around that. So that's amazing. That really does help. But I think for those that aren't in relationships, aren't in relationships where you have common goals, there is some work needs to be done.
No, definitely. And I love that because you mentioned about the fact of profiles and all of these things, and a lot of people don't know about profiles, they don't know about this profiling, they don't have any idea about any of these things. And when I think about it and I hear about divorce and all of these things, and somebody's saying, I've tried, I've done all I can, you then have to wonder, like, have you really tried all you can? Because sometimes you only try what you know. And there's more knowledge out there, and if you've not gone out there to to find out about it, then really you've only tried what you know.
Yes.
And so that's why I think like personal development counseling, it's almost like counseling. A lot of people see like therapy, counseling, oh, it means you're crazy or you're off your brain before you have to go to a counselor. Like, no. And so it's all these myths and beliefs that sometimes keeps individual from actually tapping into areas that could be a benefit to them.
Yes.
And they give up on 15 years of a marriage when they could have maybe just gone counseling and just a few sessions, having somebody work with you or work through what you're going through with you, opening your eyes to different things that you didn't even know existed, may have just helped save something that you were building for 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I love the fact that you were mentioning about profiling and seeing, you know, his character and your character traits and seeing what doesn't work together and what works. And I think that makes a magnificent difference to not just your relationship, but then it also makes a difference to your children as well.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing this, right? They're able to see you guys make things work, even when it seemed like it was chaotic.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of difference. I was asking my daughter the other day, the youngest one, and I said to her, have you ever thought about the fact that, because obviously my older children from my previous marriage, and obviously they grew up not having the dad in the home, but more a stepdad who is my husband now.
Right.
And so I always think, you have conversation with yourself. I'm a genius right now. Right? I have conversation with myself nonstop. And so as I was having this conversation in my head, I asked her, I said, how have you felt knowing that you're growing up in your home with your mom and your dad? And she said, I've never thought about it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it seems it's normal for her. You know what I'm saying? And so, but it's not normal for the other two.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying? And so I was just really building a picture of a contrast around it so that they can have a conversation of the difference and how the dynamics for them is different. Because to her, they're growing up with a dad because her dad is there.
Right.
You understand? So from her eyes, it's normal.
Yes.
And so the reason why I was bringing that in is because I honestly believe that if I didn't do work on myself, because when I got out of that relationship, Linda, I was like, no man's gonna ever talk to me anyhow. No man's gonna do this. No man's gonna. I was so rigid. I was like, I was a warrior before, and then I made somebody break me. It made me become like an ant.
Right.
I need to go back. I need to be an elephant. You know, if you're coming to crush, I'm gonna be crushing even harder.
Yeah.
And I had to work on myself. You know that I don't. So we've just celebrated 15 years of marriage.
Congratulations.
Nowhere near years yet. But I'm happy that I have people like yourself that I can see.
Yeah.
And it's an encouragement,
Thank
you know.
you.
But I was just saying that to say that there's so many people that they've grown up around things that seems normal. And until they go out there and they start experiencing and learning all these different things, they won't actually make any step to better their lives, and they will just stick with the norm. And maybe the norm is killing them, killing their dreams, their desires, and killing everything. So I love the fact that you brought that up and the importance of personal development and just working alongside your partner to see, okay, this is going wrong. What can we do to then make it better?
Exactly.
You know, so.
And I think just adding on to that, you know, media and communication has a big part in that. So, you know, like you say, people just give up. And the media kind of portrays that anyway. If you're not getting on, just finish with them.
Just end it.
Yeah, exactly. And communication is so key because it's so easy to have an argument with somebody, and it's and you will know, regardless of how long you've been with your partner, what buttons to push in order to make them flip. Yeah. And you'll know what ones will make them okay. Yeah. So it's the case of where do you want to go? Do you want to always be right, and do you always want to have that argument and have that push and pull, or do you want to find that middle ground for that, you know, for that communication? And so again, it's about what your children see. How do you resolve the conflicts? and I'm not saying we don't have conflict, me and Matt, we do.
Who doesn't?
We do, but
it's how you deal
choose.
with it.
Yeah, you choose how you want to deal with it, because you know that you're in it for the long term. So do I really want to be like miserable for the rest of my married life?
Exactly.
Or do I want to like
100%,
you know, have
100%.
peace
Yeah.
and happiness? And so it's about that choice. And again, it's about the people that are our age group and older. They have that choice. They have that choice to make that change.
100%. Absolutely love it, because my brain was going into something else, and I'm like, if we go into that, we're gonna be here all day. But it's been a pleasure to have you. I don't take your time for granted, and I know that anyone watching has learned some beautiful, powerful gems from what you have shared and your journey. And yes, we will be tuning in again to see and hear more about this development. I wanted to ask though, do you do property training? Is it something that you've done, or you've just do it in the quiet of your... Because I never knew you did it.
Oh, really?
Especially to this scale, I never had a clue.
Yeah, and it's again about our circles in terms of what we pull out there. And so, no, I don't get involved in property training. I don't have a property training company or anything like that. We just create it for our own generational wealth.
Good.
But
Nice.
we do have private clients that come to us occasionally and say, okay, would you help us? Can you mentor us, whatever? And, you know, we'll do it on a bespoke basis.
Service.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's good to know. But great. So thank you so much, Linda, for just being here with us, and thank you for sharing. And as you know, guys, please do share this with somebody that you know will benefit from our conversations. Remember, you're an iconic woman. You are beautiful. You were created for a purpose and a time like this. So go out there and represent who you were made to be. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Iconic Women Show. We look forward to having you again. So don't forget to subscribe and do the 3 R's. Leave your ratings, reviews, and recommend to your family and friends.